back in 2010, I had my bicep pop off. I was scared. Like, I didn't know it was possible. And it was weird because it wasn't in the gym. I was doing a skit on Jimmy Kimmel. It was just crazy. And I was lifting a couch, and we were like Expendables cleaning service. And I lifted a couch, and boing, I'm like, what in the world?
So welcome back to Strong Talk. We're back with Pat Davidson, a resident muscle scientist, and today's guest is an actor and author and somebody in one of my favorite shows, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've been watching you for years, Terry Crews, and I've been watching you since Idiocracy. You looked jacked in Idiocracy. You looked amazing in The Expendables on our cover 6 or 7 years ago. You still look amazing now. I'm really curious just where you put your body at right now and your physical shape. Would you say you're in the best shape you ever been?
Well, I would say I feel the best I've ever felt. I've been in better shape because as you get older, I'm 56, and there's just some things that won't do the same things they used to do. You know what I mean? Recovery and my tendons and different things. They just, a lot of times you just don't feel the same in regards to your workout. But I feel much better in regard to my life and my energy and the whole thing. But it's like I do get more sore, than I used to. I spend a lot of time in the gym just working on things and feeling, things that I've always said, like, okay, I need my lower back to get stronger. I've been feeling sore there, so let me work on bands and trying to, doing more reps, like I'll do like 100 reps on super lightweight in order to get, the blood flowing, and, warming up is way more important than it ever used to be.
Yeah. When you're 20, right? You can just go in, don't need to do anything. And now you have to take your time and prepare for everything.
I could fall off a roof at 20 years old and jump right up. I'm just saying, I literally playing in the NFL was like that. And now I stub my toe and I'm like, oh my God. But the warm up I'll spend 20 minutes warming up. You know what I mean? The shoulders, the back, the core, and then if it's leg day, you got to get just start light, a little pre-exhaustion just to get everything flowing. But when I'm rolling, it's beautiful, So I can feel, it's weird, when I get the right warm up, I feel young again.
Can we talk about the warm up, and just, I'm interested to hear from you, Pat, in terms of when that age is when we have to start thinking about that. Obviously, everybody's going to say when you're 20, you should be doing it, but no 20-year-old is going to do it. They're all going to jump to the workout. Right. When is that point where our body starts to change and we have to mandatory take those things seriously?
It's a great question with no scientific answer. Okay. But I think that it's not just an age, it's going to be your experience through life. If you played NFL football, you went through car accidents every weekend, so that's going to take its toll, and you're going to need to account for that. There's just differences in biological age versus chronological age, and your body, what it's gone through. So I think that it's I don't ever like to have to rely on one thing. Sometimes I'll take more time to warm up than others. Other times I won't, because I don't want to psychologically have a crutch that I'm now on. I need a foam roller before I can work out. Well, what if I don't have one? So I think that there's different approaches to it. And sometimes it can be, you think you need something when in fact you don't. Now, I'm not saying don't warm up, particularly if you're older and your joints need that, but there's no definitive absolutes with that.
I want to pick up something you said. So you said at one point, and it's crazy because before you even got here, me and Pat were talking about you, and it's like, how has he been able to do this for 30 some years? And I was like, has to be a little bit of genetics, right? You're saying it's not just genetics. Was there a point where for yourself, you thought your physique and your athleticism and everything was about genetics? And two, when did you kind of realize this is a skill, this is something that isn't genetic, that you need to work on and develop?
Well, it's as a kid, I always wanted to be strong, and get a little personal here. You know, we all have these like real psychological reasons why we want to do what we want to do. My father was very abusive, and you know, I thought one day that I would have to kill him. I mean, and I prepared. I was 10 years old putting my feet under my bed and doing like sit-ups until my stomach cramped up, you know, really just practicing, like, you know, just knowing that because he was huge, he was a giant man. And I said, I have to protect my mother, I have to protect the rest of my family. And so what's wild is psychologically, your body goes into this mode of like, okay, you know, even the way I would, my posture and different things. And I could see where I was getting a little neck and muscles and different things. And once I noticed that, like when I was a kid, if you look at any of the old videos of me, I was always making up muscle, always flexing, always. And it was like, I had to be strong. And so I think that lends to where I felt like, okay, genetically I am. But a lot of it was because of what I needed. You know what I mean? It's funny because, you know, a lot of even your phobias or bad habits, at one time you needed it. You know what I mean? There's things that you need that, you know, maybe later on you don't need anymore. But the problem is you don't know that. But there's just, I really started to think a lot more psychologically about my body and how it works. But let me tell you, what happened was after I played in the NFL and after I did all my things, because I used to think I was a natural, you know, just a great athlete and the whole thing. But then I also understood that once I played in NFL and I didn't get what I wanted, that I didn't want it bad enough. Like the reason I didn't become a superstar in NFL was because I didn't work on the stuff that wasn't genetic. You understand what I mean? Like it was a thing where, you know, I relied way too much on just natural ability and did not take care of myself in regards to like the little details, the little things. And so once I had a career in entertainment, I made up for that. I studied my lines. I studied everything about I had to do. I used my body knowing that this was my tool now. I was like, okay, I'm going to get into a tremendous shape, not just regular shape, tremendous shape. Because to me, I always felt like that was my advantage. Like, you know, there weren't a lot of people like me doing comedy. And what if I was the most muscular comedic actor who ever existed, you know? And I was in a place all by myself for a long time, for a long, long time. Now, you have a lot of muscular guys doing funny stuff. But when I started, they were like, dude, what is this? What?
Pat's funny too.
A couple of moments.
Hey, you see, we all, listen, we just doing the stuff we do in the weight room. You know what I mean? But what happened is when you come out and all of a sudden you got to go shift into this mode. I decided never to go into that mode. You know, just now let's just stay funny. You know?
So I'm interested to know too, you talked about obviously the big things, right? What were the big things that came naturally to you? And what were the little things that you decided to take care of after you got out of the NFL?
You know what really came natural to me? Cardio. Listen, I could run like the wind. I was super fast. I could run and be muscular, but I loved cardio. I love that, you know, getting into, I mean, I'll be honest, for almost 25 years, I run 4 miles a day. You know, it's just that recently where I started to get some hip things, tendons in my hips, where I started to do more like Stairmaster and, you know, just to adjust those kind of things. But naturally, I love cardio. I know like bodybuilders and people were like, you running that much? Like you running all that? I was like, dude, I can't stop. Like I had so much energy that I had to burn it off, you know? Now, the thing I couldn't do naturally were squats. Like, because I have the, you know, and I always thought people were like, you can't get your ass to grass, you're not doing it right. And I couldn't do it. And but one thing I learned is that, wait a minute, I'm all legs. Like, listen, my wife, I tower over my wife, but when we sit down, she's the same size. I look her dead in the eyes. I'm looking you in the eyes right now, and I'm taller than you.
Yeah.
But I'm all legs. My legs start way up here.
Yeah.
So those things I didn't know. I was struggling for years. Like, why can't I squat? Why can't I do it right? You know what I mean? So a lot of that stuff was knowledge based, you know?
How do you solve the squat problem?
Well, I learned to widen my stance. Also learned to bow my legs a little more where I could get more of a squeeze as opposed to, you know, before I was trying to do what I saw other people doing and their bodies were different. Yeah. You know what I mean? They had a short legs and they could just do whatever. And I started to just adjust and find my sweet spot. Like, it took years. Yeah. You know, I was doing it wrong. And it was so funny because I remember going on the internet and putting my squat on the internet. And people were like, what am I doing wrong? And they're like, oh, you're not doing it right. And I got like 50 million comments. And I realized I just had to find my own. You know what I mean? That's where I was at.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because at probably like early ages of NFL strength, they're trying to make everybody do the lift the same way. Yeah. And even that has kind of evolved over the years to where now they let you find different squat stances. And
listen, now I was at the Pro Bowl. I hosted the Pro Bowl games. I'm talking to these guys, man, they don't do squats. They're on they're do what is it? The belt squats. Yeah. They'll do belt squats. Like when I was like, you cheat your belt squats. I ain't gonna do nothing, you know. And then you realize these guys are some of the best athletes that ever existed. And there were a lot of things that were counted out back then that people are doing now. You know?
It's interesting. For those of you at home, the belt squat is kind of, instead of putting a giant weight on your back, the belt, you just put on the belt, there's a weight below you. Yep. So it's a lot less upper body strain, but you still get the squat motion done. It's interesting too. I used to cover the NFL and I talked to Justin Tuck a lot. Defensive end, Giants, I love that guy. But he used to say the same thing. Like, they tried, like, for a long time, it was you have to barbell bench. And he said they never ask you to barbell bench anymore. They only have you dumbbell press.
Because it's not even a real movement you would do. You know what I mean? That was the thing. People try to figure it out like, oh man, it's explosion, but you're never gonna be like, oh, I think, you know. Yeah. Now this is one thing I'm really excited about. I just bought an anti-gravity treadmill. Yeah. I was in Como, Italy, and I was watching the Como team, and I went into their workout room and I saw one for the first time. I didn't know it existed. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, and this was the problem with me because I ran a lot, but I'm 245 pounds. So pound. That's when I started to discover where my hips were hurting and all this stuff. And I would get plantar fasciitis. And I said, oh my God, now it's on its way. I have not done it yet. Yeah. It's literally being delivered. I can't wait to get on it. I can't wait to try it because it literally lets you run lighter. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about it. It's like, I could take 40, 50 pounds and still run, you know, which is one thing I love to do.
Pat, one thing, can you, explain the anti-gravity treadmill? Because I don't even fully understand that. And two, can you explain the idea of, like, obviously it's still going to give Terry a cardio effect, right? But we can sometimes unload our body and still get a lot, even if we're not using our body weight fully, right?
Yeah, the anti-gravity treadmill, the Ultra G, I'm guessing, is the one.
That's it.
You know, it's almost like it zips around you, and it creates a bit of a vacuum effect. So I don't fully understand how the thing works. You have to be yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it literally takes a rocket scientist to understand.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's going to unload you. It's like taking any exercise and making it lighter. You know, even if we took bench press and we made it 40 pounds lighter, you're like, well, this is actually a lot easier. Yeah. You know, feels a little better on my joints, etc. So there's nothing beyond the fact that it's just lighter. You know, and you get a lot of the same effects. Like we know with aquatic plyometrics, you get essentially the same effects as terrestrial plyometrics. But you get the avoidance of a lot of the impact on the joints. And I'll tell you, you know, my weight has got in very different places from competing in weight class sports. And I've been as heavy as 245 and trying to run and do track and field work at that weight. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And, dropping down to, drop 40, 50 pounds. And it's like, oh, this feels amazing again. Like, yes, like here's the spring and the explosion and all that stuff. It's as simple as how heavy is the exercise. It's just the exercise is you.
One thing you've mentioned a couple of times in this conversation is the idea of tendon and ligaments, and you got to a certain point and you feel that more. Can you talk a little bit about the science of that, Pat? I feel like there comes an age, right, where like you have to pay attention to your tendons. I think they say in your 40s or whatever, tendon vascularity, just the quality of them starts to change.
There's a lot of, I think, statements regarding like specifics with age, and like, I don't know how it's never going to perfectly work that way. Yeah. It's just appreciating that there's differences in the amount of blood flow that's going to go to different forms of tissue. Okay. So, and the rate at which these tissues adapt and heal is different. Like for instance, nerves are very slow to heal. It's a 7 times slower process as compared to muscles. Tendons are going to be slower to heal than muscle tissue. And a lot of that is just simply based on the fact that there's less blood flow directly to them. They kind of rely more on blood around them sort of coming into them as opposed to a direct source just pumping straight into it. So, it's just appreciating that they're going to adapt later in the training process. If I start lifting weights today, the first thing that changes is my nervous system. I essentially learn how to do the movement more effectively, efficiently, recruit the tissues properly.
And then comes
the muscle, then the tendon, then the bone. Essentially what it is it starts superficial and it becomes more and more progressively deeper. And it goes further than that. Eventually, the deepest thing is your genetics, and you can change that. But that's the basic.
I love this, man.
It's like crazy, right?
To hear it like this, I'm like, yeah, this is good. This is good.
What do you do? What do you do then for because obviously it's really easy for us to train muscles and we can hit them more frequently, but we can hit them with frequency, but our tendons need that time to heal. So what have you started doing to kind of account for that? Is it, what are the exercises, or is it just the little ones you didn't want to do 30 years ago?
Well, it's the diet too. I'm working on, I'm trying, I've been doing collagen for the last, 2 months now. And I do feel the difference. The other thing is, it's just resting more, I used to just feel bad about a day off, and now I don't. And now I'm like, okay, you know what? I just got to stop. And that's the hard part. When you're talking about an athlete, the hardest part is telling yourself to stop because you're addicted to the feeling of, it's a rush every day and I have to have it. I can say I haven't stopped. But what I've done is what I call an active recovery day. I actually add what I would say is a phantom workout, where it's so light you can't really call it a workout, but mentally I'm like, I did something, So like I said, I'll do super light and just burn out at 100 reps at something, chest and back, and maybe just do sumo squats with kettlebells, so it's just really nice and you feel it in your leg. I just want to feel something, you get addicted to the feeling, man. Just absolutely doing nothing is like, I don't even see that happening, to be honest. But to me, that's nothing, compared to a big compound workout day where you're hitting the big movements and all that stuff. Lots of little isolation stuff, some days it's just work on your forearms, just do these and just, but I it's my piece, it's my thing. So that's one way that I've decided to work with the soreness. Back in 2010, I had my bicep pop off. I was scared. Like, I didn't know it was possible. And it was weird because it wasn't in the gym. I was doing a skit on Jimmy Kimmel. It was just crazy. And I was lifting a couch, and we were like Expendables cleaning service. And I lifted a couch, and boing, I'm like, what in the world? And it rolled all the way up, man.
Oh, wow.
And it was cushy, and now it was an intense pain. It did nothing. And I had to have it reattached. They put a piece of Kevlar, sewed a piece of Kevlar in it, and anchored it back into my arm. And I just, because these are my babies, my arms and my guns are registered in all 50 states, right? And so I said, and all I could see was like one skinny arm. There's an actual photo of when I was ringing the bell at the stock exchange. You can see it, it's online, and I have my arm and it's busted. You could see where it's all rolled up. One arm is regular and one arm is rolled up. I had it done and I worked on it, and it's stronger than it's ever been. Modern science is absolutely fantastic.
I want to go back to the active recovery day and just how it kind of works for you, because I think it is something like our guys need to understand. Is it a thing that where you have like a set split and you plan your active recovery days, or is it a thing where you wake up some mornings and you're like, you know what, I feel like horrible, so today's an active recovery day?
It's planned, more so. It's more planned. I would say Wednesday and Sunday are the biggest active recovery days that I have. And everything in between there are, a regular pretty much workout day. But I force myself to say Wednesday and then Sunday, because Sunday's perfect. It's like family time. You just gotta, do a little bit, and then you gotta go with the wife and do all this stuff. You know what I mean? So it's really, really planned out, because if I don't plan it, that's the problem. Like I've always found, because I've had a lot of injuries where I blew hamstrings. Blowing my back out a lot. You just tweak your neck, and you're doing things like, oh my God, and you're walking around all day like, hey, what's up, buddy? I mean, I remember doing Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I'm going, oh man, I hope I don't look crazy, but my neck is totally messed up right now. You know what I mean? But you get used to the pain. That's another thing too. If you're not careful, you develop a thing where if you're not in pain, something's wrong.
Yeah,
that's what you have to. I love the nods, because I'm going. You see what I mean? You know what I'm talking about.
I know 100%. Especially in the neck stuff. Yeah.
Can you explain the difference for people between good pain and bad pain? Because there is like good pain, right? Like I'm sore, I feel like I worked, right?
Yes.
And then you can't tell the difference between bad pain, like, oh crap, something is serious. How can guys tell the difference?
It's a really good question, and like from my experience with personally training people in Manhattan, like most people have no idea.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I had one guy, we had done Bulgarian split squats, and he comes back in the next time and we're going to do that exercise again. He goes, oh, that's the one that hurt my knee. I was like, oh, really? Like, you seemed fine when we did it. I was like, so where in your knee did it hurt? And he just points to his whole quad. And I was like, oh, that's not your knee. That's like that's what we're going for. Like, you're telling me that your muscles were sore. He's like, yeah. So I learned you have to ask these questions, and most people don't know. Now, if you have a history of playing sports your whole life and you've been to the extremes, you actually know what the middle is. But a lot of people, they haven't had that exposure, so you don't know.
What's the best cue for them? What's the best thing that we can just tell them how to assess?
Well, there's like medical stuff that you'd have to go through, like specifically examining things, and there's tells about injuries versus not injuries. And, overall what I would say is, are you able to make progress? Yeah. Okay. Are you able to make progress with your exercises? If that's the case, well, you're actually not fatigued. Yeah. And you're not really you're uncomfortable. Yeah. There's a big difference between that. And training and pushing your body to change is uncomfortable. Nothing changes in the world unless there's discomfort involved. Why would it change?
So if you can get stronger through it physically, and you can see it with the numbers, then you're probably on the right track. If it's causing you pain and you can't progress and you can't do the reps, then there's a problem.
There's a thin line, you know what I mean? Yeah. You're riding a unicycle down a tightrope with this stuff. And it's like, chances are, if you're never sore, you're not doing enough to be able to stimulate any changes in your body. You're never going to go anywhere. If you're wrecked all the time, if we kind of bring you back a little bit, you might make better progress. But ultimately, I've been training for a long time, very similar, where it's like, back, neck, joints, muscles, like I've done it all. Yeah. And I've learned from that experience, like, this isn't as bad as you know what I mean? Like, I've had backs and okay, I don't even know how bad this is right now. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to freak out. I just don't even know. Let me kind of...
Yeah, you have to wait almost like the next day.
Yeah.
And feel like, okay, I can't move now.
Right.
Let's see if I'll move in the morning.
Yeah. But,
So-
15 years before, I would have freaked out and I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God, my life is over. I'm never going to train again. Like, but now it's like, I know it's like, all right.
But that's a good. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, but that's a great thing to say because I've seen where, people who haven't done it, they panic.
Yeah.
And this is the thing too. You can't run uphill with downhill thoughts. And when
That's
you
complex.
think it is.
Yeah, I need a little more on that one.
No, it is
Yeah, super
because
slow-mo.
the whole point of working out is to get better.
Yeah.
But when you panic and feel like, oh
Okay.
God, I've really injured myself, all of a sudden your body will manifest that. You know what I mean? Like, but if you say, okay, it hurts right now, but I'm getting better. It's like you will your body kind of goes in line with your mind. It is when they talk about the mind muscle connection and these kind of things, I really do believe that what you believe, it forms who you are in so many ways, physically, mentally, spiritually. The mind is much more powerful than we would think.
So two things I really want to hit with you, and one of them you kind of talked about a little bit. Like, when you have an injury, especially like I remember every time I've ever felt anything, I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to train again. I'm going to die. My life is over. Yeah. Like you've had big injuries, like NFL wise, the biceps. What's the approach? Because again, the remarkable thing about you is your consistency throughout decades. What's the approach that when you would get hurt or feel something like a shoulder or a biceps or whatever, serious or not, that did you train through or train around it? What's your mental approach to that?
Train around and through, like get back on the horse. Even with plantar fasciitis, it was hurting. But so I just cut everything down and decided to walk on an incline. You know what I mean? But never stop. Lots of ice, and I think, there's a lot of debate about what cold tubs and all this stuff. But to me, placebos work, man. Placebos work. They are special. First of all, modern science, if it works as good as a placebo, it gets FDA approved. You know what I mean? Give me the placebos all day. Make me think I could do it.
So
how about that?
basically, that's actually really good too, because I think we debate recovery a lot. What you're saying is if it feels good, it helps you recover on some level.
That's it. If your mind says, I feel great, I get in a cold tub and it's like, oh, I feel much better now. They got facts like that really doesn't work. I'm like, hey man, if I'm doing it and I feel great about it, sorry, you know what I mean? That sugar pill, if it works, if you believe it's gonna make you feel good, it's like, oh, it works. Take your sugar pill every day. You know what I mean? I'm with it.
Can you talk a little bit about that, Pat, just in terms of down regulation?
Sure.
I feel like that is a thing.
Well, I'd say number one, I'm in total agreement with the idea of like, don't stop. Okay. The biggest thing, people shut it down. There's always something that you can do. There's always something that you can do.
That's good.
And so find it, that's a critical thing. In terms of like what you're talking about, like sometimes there's a trade-off between something that just recovers you and allows you to go versus what allows you to adapt and grow and change and create the bigger, stronger internal structures of the body. And so like inflammation is central to the processes that drive adaptation. So if we reduce that through outside mechanisms, I can be ready to go again faster, but I don't necessarily get all the adaptations that would take place. So if it's, NBA finals is happening right now, if I need to be ready to go, they've got a 24-hour gap between the next game. Like you get done with one of those games, you probably feel like you got hit by a train. Yeah. Okay. So whatever it takes to get you ready to play.
That's to get you ready to play.
Yes.
Versus,
hey, you're training, it's the off season. Like I'm only looking for you to gain more mitochondria or more muscle tissue or whatever that is. Yeah. I might not choose it then. So it's kind of time and place. If I need you right now, for sure, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at you. I don't care if it's placebo or science or whatever. Like if I get, particularly with athletes, if your mind is right, then excellent, whatever,
That's a really interesting idea too, because that's the difference between like adaptation, which allows you to get better, and getting back to it, which allows you to keep going. I'm curious, all the years you've been training, do you approach it differently now? Are you trying to get better or kind of maintain where you're at?
Well, there's diminishing returns. So there's certain things what you have to do, I feel as you get older, you're supposed to get smarter.
That's an adaptation.
You know what I mean? It's like an older basketball player, and now he has to know the game. You know what I mean? You can do a whole lot by being smart, and that's how I feel. Like when it's literally like, okay, once I've deadlifted 500 pounds, should I try 550? Should I try 6? Probably not, because it's diminishing returns. Because even if you get it, all you're risking is an injury, and you're also like, it's bragging point. Like, who are you trying to impress? That's why I had to tell myself. So if my bench press went down, if I can't bench press 400 pounds for 4 reps, so it's okay. 275 for 10. It's going to be great today. Did I do what it needed to be? And then it was so crazy is I found I looked better. Like I was like, okay, because I felt better, I tended to look better. Whereas once I was panicking about my weights and being, I didn't look as good as I thought I did. You know what I mean? It's so weird. You're just a mystery, man. You contain multitudes. He knows probably more than everything about what I know, but all I can know is what I see and how I feel. And I respond. And the key to what I say is being mindful helps you in both of those ways, But when you blank out and just don't know what you just zone out and do what everybody else is doing, and that's why I really, really am about. It's not about competing with anyone. You really have to just be more creative with your own thing, and who you are and what you like. And like you said, it's like, if you don't stop, you'll find it. You'll find the same thing with the squat. I just decided I'm gonna get creative with my squat and just do it the way till it feels right. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, my legs are growing. Things are happening. You know what I mean?
Creativity in the gym is a really interesting idea, because I feel like generally it's rigidity. It's like, here's a program, do the reps, do the sets, go home, right? I'm interested, and I feel like you have a level of creativity to your programming in the gym too, because you are programming workouts. Can you both take a minute and just describe to me what is creativity in the gym to you, and how does it kind of manifest?
Well, creativity to me is just not being dangerous. I've seen some stuff where people are like inventing some things. You're like, what is happening right now?
On your head.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Weird.
Instagram.
Just you're on the machine backwards now. It's like, no, that's I just believe in adding in things from other disciplines. Like, okay, here's a more powerlifting style, Olympic style lift that I want to try. You know what I mean? Or here's something that I've seen skiers do. That, okay, let me try this. My whole gym and my gym at the house, like I said, I bought the Antigravity treadmill. I haven't tried it yet, but that's part of the creativity.
Like experimenting.
I cannot wait to try this Antigravity treadmill. And I'm always looking at, okay, instead of doing squats, let me try to just use the cables and attach it to my ankles and use my hamstrings instead of a squat day. You know what I mean? Instead of pull-ups, let me just try using the belt squat to work my back, do deadlifts on belt squats with a handle, as opposed to a deadlift right from the ground. You know what I mean? That's creative. To me, that's creative. Like finding different ways to do the things that you want to do.
So, which is kind of an interesting idea too, because like the 10-year-old who was, doing the sit-ups and push-ups in his basement and stuff like that, he only knew those exercises. But I guess it is like, the more you know, as you learn, just borrowing from other modalities, which, by the way, shameless plug, is a really like men's health idea for how we approach fitness. Right? What's your 30-second take on creativity in the gym?
It's hard for me to do a 30-second, but I operate with a framework in mind. So I think that there's a competent way to perform exercise, and I'm trying to increase the probability of hitting something with competency. And I believe in life, more support and more feedback increases the chances that you're going to be competent. Okay. If you're clueless about something, you're trying to get into a new venture, you need support and you need feedback. And over time, as you get more familiar with something, I'm going to reduce those things. So I've got a list of things that are specific gym feedback and support mechanisms. But overall, you're probably going to learn a squat better with a hack squat versus just like out in free space, just operating on your own. Now you understand the direction of it. You've got the support there. It's giving you a track. You got a lot of feedback from touching things.
Essentially almost kind of like give people a lot more feedback so they can understand things, and then you can remove that
if I want
over time.
Right.
And it's kind of like always like a push-pull between like adding feedback so people can understand things or understand positions, and removing it.
Yes.
One thing I really want to hit with you though too is just the idea of again, we talk about like adaptation, improving, and then kind of maintaining, right? You're at a point, and there's so much research right now around like lifting heavy and the benefits of lifting heavy. You talked about 500 pounds, but do you need to go beyond that? What is your take, and how often do you make a point to lift heavy at this age? Is it less frequent than it was before? And is it still important on some level just for bone density, continue to grow muscle, continue to drive testosterone and stuff like that?
I lift as heavy as I can. You can almost feel when it's too heavy. That's where I've there's been times when, I'll put it on my back or, put it up on the bench, and then you just put it back down like, okay. Because I say, all right, it's easier to just, think longevity. For me, that's what I would say with diminishing returns. It does me no good to blow a pec. It does me no good to blow my back out today, because another thing is usually it's also, what's the goal here? As I have to go work out and then I have to go work 12 hours on a set.
And that's a really good point. You're working on America's Got Talent. How do you kind of fit the workouts in there, and what does heavy look like to you in terms of rep range and stuff like that when you're working on shows like that?
Well, what I'll do is whatever day I'm working those big, heavy compound movements, it happens that morning. And then I do my cardio, but then I go on set for like 12 hours on AGT. And this is what's so crazy. I was in the era where, we didn't have a lot of monitors, and now, you have O-rings, you got Whoop bands. And what's so crazy, dude, I found in a day when I was on set, I burned 7,000 calories.
Wow.
It blew my 7,000. I was like, no, this can't be what? And then I went the next day, it was 6,500. And I was like, but it was the energy from the people and the constantly being, and it's weird because you would think I couldn't burn 7,000 calories in the gym. I couldn't burn it on a treadmill, but being in front of the people all day, doing and talking to acts and this, it just roamed the energy. And I find, and this is another thing, every live show I lose 5 to 7 pounds.
Wow.
Every live show.
I've had the same experience. I'll teach weekend seminars and I'm on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on. And I can eat, I try to force feed myself. You know what I mean? Junk food, Gatorade, etc. I'm down 6-7 pounds by the end of the weekend.
What's the science that makes it happen?
You are up, you're standing, you're moving around, you're moving more than you think.
Right,
you're moving your hands, you're talking, you're expelling water with every, while you're exhaling when you're talking. You're thinking, your brain is on.
Yeah.
Look at chess players. Chess players have their, their heart rates up at like 80% and they're just sitting there. So there's a lot of energy expenditure with that. And just on a personal level, I've had, I'm like, how am I down 6 pounds? I literally eat triple cheeseburgers every meal.
So basically best cardio workout is to go get like a job in TV somehow.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I literally, my waistline, I'm going, woo, my pants are loose at the end of the day.
Are we burning calories right? This has been a very stimulating conversation. Am I down like 3,000 calories right now?
I'd say 6.
There we go. Yeah. I like to close with just what's your one tip for everybody, for both of you guys? What's the one tip you would give everybody in terms of consistency of fitness over decades? Because that's the game for so many of our readers.
Again, my biggest bit of advice I would say is treat yourself like your greatest tool is you. You know, and you can't compare what you are to anyone else. You know, work on yourself like you would, you know, sharpening your tools. You gotta have your knife sharp. Your computer has to be updated. You know, you have to always have your tools right in order to do what you have to do. But we neglect our own bodies.
One quick thing to follow up though, it's really hard to not compare yourself in this age of like Instagram. You pull it up and there's like 7 guys more jacked than you. How do you kind of avoid that, or what do you tell people to?
Well, a lot of times I tell myself, see you at the finish line. Like, there are people who feel like they're running past you and it takes the air out of you. But remember, you can't run uphill with thinking downhill thoughts. I always say, okay, you're gone, but I will see you at the finish line. We're never finished. This is the thing. I always say this. It's we're like Legos, you know, and you're all pieces. You're in pieces, and people are in a box, and they grab the box and they shake it, and they go, "Oh man, look at you. You're broken, man." No, you're not. You're not broken. You're just not finished. Everything, you can just take it apart and put it back, and piece it together. But it's your job. It is no one else's job to piece you together but you. If someone else comes in and does that, they're going to build you the wrong way. It's going to be a mess. You have to do it yourself. And taking responsibility for your own fitness, for your own life, makes your body, makes everything, makes your spirit, makes everything right. The moment I did that, everything changed for me for the better.
Pat, super quick tip. That was
beautiful, by the way. Like, it was really,
yeah.
I think I swing the pendulum back and forth with people. Like, I'll tell people it's never too late, okay? But good. Also, you're not the person you were 20 years ago, okay? Like, we talk about comparing yourself to others with social media. A lot of men in particular compare themselves to what they remember themselves at their peak, and they expect that they should do that today. And it's like, let's just be okay with who we are today. All right. And, you know, I also tell people very similarly, we need to be thinking about mile 26 when we're in mile 1. Oof. Okay. Like, I don't want you to come out of the gates too hot, because if you do that, now I don't know what's going to go wrong. Okay. Maybe you have a blowout in your shoe and we're going to get a blister here, and that's going to get exacerbated over time. So let's be really smart about how we approach this right now, because you're fresh, but we're not going to stay fresh. And I don't need week 1 heroes turn into week 15 fizzle outs. So
yeah. And I think that's the amazing thing. I think the big lesson I get from you is just that comprehension of you're not what you were, but living in the moment and appreciating that moment and adjusting your strength. And I think that's a really good lesson for all our guys. Just allow yourself to be at your best for today and run your own race, and don't get in that competitive environment, which is hard for me.
It's hard for all of us.
Yeah. It'll be hard for everybody, right? But that's the battle. So thank you so much for teaching us a little bit about that battle, Terry. It's been great to have you on, and look forward to having you on like 10 years from now, even more jacked.
Let's do it. Me too.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's honestly a lot of good lessons for me.
Oh no, man. Listen, I've been at this for a long time, man.